Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android. We recommend Spotify. Also, check out the 5 Reasons YouTube channel for all your South Florida sports content. Also, Off the Floor, that's our Discord server. That's $2.99 per month. Link is right here in the description. You'll bypass the Apple upcharge. This is the place to go for the most heat anywhere, the most heat information and conversation. It's Off the Floor. Also, check out PrizePicks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down your $5. You get $50 in free lineups. PrizePicks is legal in the state of Florida, and you get better options than you get on that app that everybody talks about. Make sure if you don't use the link in the description, you just go to PrizePicks, delete whatever code is in there, enter the code F-I-V-E, and you'll get the best deal and help us out. So check it out. It's prizepicks.com. And now, today's episode.
Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation. We the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket. Open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor. Still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court. Still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball. Or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleeping paths or allowed to mornings. The nut is sleeping us. Never catch us snoring. Live from Miami. Report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the courts to the streets. Yeah. Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Live on the floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. Make sure to check out the episode I did with Eternal Bast. What did we do? I can't even remember. Oh, we talked about Eric Spoelstra as the Team USA coach and the ramifications of that. Make sure to also check out all the work on Sports Illustrated. I'm managing that page now. So several people that you hear from on this podcast are writing there. Eventually, Greg will get you there too. I'm onboarding. We got Major there too. He's going to torch the whole thing. We know he's a jinx, but he's going to start writing for us as well. If you're looking for Brady's takeaways, if I can sell you on anything on the Sports Illustrated on SI page, Brady's takeaways are there. Okay. They used to be on the 5 Reasons site. They've been moved and they are over there now so that Brady can actually earn some money. And not out of my pocket. So all the better. So make sure I'm just a conduit on the SI site. So just make sure that you check out the takeaways. Brady does a great job on those. All right. One of the takeaways from this training camp is that the vibes seem to be, I don't know. What's the word people use for this? Immaculate. The vibes are immaculate. The vibes are positive.
That works.
Right. Okay. So it seems like everybody likes each other. Now, I always caution on this, and we came up with this topic because Tyler Hero posted on his IG a bunch of stories tagging various players with photos of them. And then, of course,
it seemed like all of them, all the players, basically.
Was there anybody we didn't see? Rozier?
I can't remember seeing Terry. I'm trying to think.
Jovic was there. Hawkins was there. Powell was there. Bam was there. Kasparis was there. Larson was there. Keshad Johnson was there. Davion was there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to say that that's as close to an all-team outing as you're going to get in this day and age, probably to some degree, because some guys just want to chill and play video games.
Right, and they played dominoes on the boat, and I don't know if that brings back any bad vibes because that was Jimmy's thing. And I want to bring up a couple of things related to this. First thing, I don't want to compare everything that goes on this season to what happened under Jimmy Butler. People are tired of me doing that. I'll just do it on this episode. Last year, at this time, there was a cloud over the franchise that just kind of got darker. Now, not everybody knew everything that was going on behind the scenes, and particularly that Jimmy called his agent on the very first day of training camp and said they're trying to take my money because they had changed the offensive style to more guard-based And although Jimmy said he didn't care about scoring, obviously he thought that as he hadn't got the extension yet, that was going to affect his money in some way. And again, things got worse. We know that. And it all culminated in early January when the suspension started, and then ultimately a trade in February. This hung over everybody's head the whole year. It hung over Bam's head, or at least until the trade. It hung over Bam's head for sure as the captain. Tyler got asked about it all the time. Players had to pretend that they were cool with Jimmy in some cases when they weren't. Really, as far as I understand it, and I know some players may challenge this, but as I understand it, he had kind of, I'm not going to say everybody was against him, but he had really 3 allies in the locker room. Okay. One was Rozier that he remained friendly with. But of course, that was a weird one because Jimmy wanted better talent, and bringing in Rozier was part of the reason that they couldn't bring in better talent. So that was one. The other was Jovic, who just likes everybody. Really. I mean, maybe he doesn't like
Jimmy
us. I don't
took
know.
him under his wing before things went south. So that's
Right.
also the reason.
And Jimmy
why
deserves credit for that, by the way.
Yeah.
Jimmy showed up at Sioux Falls and propped him up. And now we're kind of starting to see some of the fruits of that. And that is one of Jimmy's legacies here. He saw something in Jovic. I can tell you that the folks around Jimmy, even when Jaquez was sort of blowing up as a rookie, kept saying to me, Jovic is the guy. Jovic has star potential. Like that was the consensus of the folks that I would talk to who had associations with Jimmy. So Jovic was always, and Jovic talked to us about that on the podcast we did with him. We sat down with a media day, and he said, that it wasn't as big a deal inside the locker room as it was. It was sort of more of a media creation, and I'll take Nico's word for that. The other was Kevin Love, and that was a weird situation because Kevin wasn't against the organization on it. People
he was
read
just
that
the
wrong.
buffer on all sides.
Right. He was doing the IG stuff, and also Kevin is big on mental health issues, and I do know that he was concerned or had expressed some concerns about how this was weighing on Jimmy, among others. Okay, and so I think he was trying to do the right things. I think it got perceived, and he was trying to lighten the mood. It got perceived a certain way, and of course, Kevin didn't want to leave this year. Kevin was not happy about being a math, problem and being traded, and now he's in Utah until he's bought out. He did not want, and they didn't want to trade him either. They wanted to trade Highsmith to the Clippers to get Norm. Okay, anyway, I say all of that to say that there was this cloud over the team that never really went away, and then the new guys came in and they got thrown into this situation. Wiggins gets pulled from the only place he's been comfortable, which is Golden State, where the fans loved him. Kerr was crying when he left. Andrew is he's an introvert, and he has been since he came. That's what made him different than LeBron when they were, other than the physical ability. Okay, but Wiggins was getting compared to LeBron as a number 1 pick that everybody wanted, and Wiggins doesn't have that. He wasn't going to ever tattoo chosen one on his ankle or anything like that. That's not him. And so he came into this situation. Davion flourished. He was the one, but otherwise, it was just a confusing time. Like there was kind of a halfway team last year. They weren't playing very well. They end up in the play-in, and then of course they got spanked by Cleveland. So the vibes were never really good last year because and some of it was caused by us, but a lot of it honestly was caused by Jimmy. So I was curious to see what this camp was going to look like, and I'll just say that the reports I'm getting are that it was really good. Everybody seems fairly content, happy, and the issues we thought might be issues, Greg, like Hero's contract extension, Tyler hasn't made it that and wasn't making it that. I didn't think he would before, he even got injured. And now he's the one that's kind of acting as, team, activity organizer and posting photos on Instagram, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about where they were this time last year, the headspace of the collective group is much better now. We'll talk about what that actually means in a moment, but you can't, I mean, any sound-minded person is going to say that this roster is in a better place than it was last year. The locker room is in a better place, things like that. I think that them getting all of these guys together, that never hurts. Like there's some organizations where a superstar leaves and they're cobbling together pieces. And you know what this year's about? Instead of those guys being out on the boat and kind of growing as a team. And you also hear Spoelstra just kind of gushing over how competitive they were, but still respecting one another, stuff like that. There's other organizations where everybody's looking around and they're like, what am I going to get for myself this year? Because I'm up for an extension soon, or this is just a stop along the way. How can I maximize this 1 year? And they're not playing for the team. So I think it's worth us acknowledging that like good organizations usually find ways to pick up the pieces and get back on track. We'll see what that really means. And I'll talk about in a minute kind of my thoughts on what the public displays of them coming together as a team can ultimately mean, because I think we got to be really careful with that kind of stuff. But it's definitely not a bad thing that we're not seeing a bunch of headlines where it says Wiggins wants to be somewhere else and Tyler and Norm are competing and
For an
going
extension.
at one another because of an extension.
Right.
Just I'm making those things completely up.
And even a couple of years ago, you had Yurtsevin pushing for a starting job. Remember that? That was, it's funny to think about now, looking back at it. The people who were mocking this on social media were comparing it to the Giants boat trip. And can we just be clear on this? They're talking about the New York Giants, the Odell Beckham trip where they took that ridiculous photo together.
So bad.
Right. But that was during the season, though. The team took off during the. See, there's a difference here. You go do that as a group during the season. All right. It's almost in defiance of your organization. Like the Giants went and did that and they took off, right? While you're in the middle of an NFL season where you can't drop a game. Like, so to go do that on your bye week, I understand. And it got mocked because of some of the photos. They looked a little ridiculous and all the rest. I remember the Pacers taking those ridiculous photos together during the Heat's Big Three. Remember those? And they got
that was going to be my other
example.
example.
Right. Like, and some of this stuff can be pretty silly, but like nothing yesterday. First thing, it's during the preseason. That's when you want to be doing these group bonding activities leading up to the season. You're not taking away from the work. You're building relationships. The other, and they didn't get to go to the Bahamas this year. They went to Boca. And as somebody who grew up in Boca, I can tell you Boca ain't the Bahamas. Okay. So they didn't get that experience of going to I know they stayed in a nice hotel and all that stuff, but like, it's not the Bahamas. So they got this experience together in Miami. They get to experience that together. And again, it reinforces what Miami offers that a lot of other cities in the country do not offer. Plus they didn't have to deal with the traffic while they're out in a boat. And thankfully for them, there's no construction out in the middle of the bay. I hope not anyway. And so they got the best of a day in Miami together. But I also think the part of this that is, so let's stop comparing to the Giants thing. That's just stupid. But the other part of this is, I do think it's showing to be some benefit that the Heat have actually leaned into some kind of a direction. Because that was a young guy's boat trip. Okay. That looked like it was responsible. Okay. There's none of that Stephon Diggs stuff that was coming out of it. If you remember what happened a couple months ago, it looked like they just went out and had a good time as the guys. Okay. And they made fun of each other as they jumped in the water and they played dominoes. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it looks like just like a bunch of guys in their 20s, the average age of the rotation we've talked about is going to be about 26, having fun. Like I don't see anything wrong with that. We'll get into what it means, but as far as those photos are kind of cool. I mean, it's like the fans get to see it, and Tyler putting them on his Instagram is kind of cool too, because the people who follow him got to see what his relationship. I mean, he and Jovic are always laughing when they're together. So it's like you get to see, okay, here's two young guys who are core parts of this franchise, at least at the moment, and they like each other. That's not bad.
No, and the photos were organic. It wasn't like they had professional photographers, and they also weren't posing like that. So you're right in that, like the Giants example, that's like the furthest extreme to like there was ties because of the boat. When I think of that, but you're right. Like they were kind of in a different headspace in that they were kind of trying to puff their chest out. This isn't a group that was doing that necessarily. This was a group that you saw, and then, not just Tyler posting photos, but then everyone else who was there posting their versions, their angles of what was taking place. It just seemed like an organic moment with the team. And it's another reinforced, like emblems. It's a stamp on this team that it's a new era. The Jimmy Butler era is over. And so I think anything that they can do to start carving out their own identity as a group has to be looked at as healthy.
One of the really positive attributes that Bam has, and you're starting to see it with Tyler also a little bit more explicitly here, is that when I would be in the Bahamas and I would watch Bam when he wasn't, and a couple of times I was down there at Bahamar or at Atlantis for training camp, there weren't a lot of people there. And one time we were there and it was like the hurricane was coming and whatever. Even this past time, like they were having trouble selling hotel rooms at Bahamar. And every time I saw Bam, he was with the youngest guys. Every time. Now, it always struck me that he was never with Jimmy. Like, never. Okay. And like, I remember at training camp last year, Hawkins, I would always see him with Jovic in the casino or whatever. And then Bam was always with like the G League guys, the guys trying to make the team and that kind of stuff. And I've also noticed that with Tyler too on the bench. He's joking around with some of the guys on the bottom end of the roster. That is positive, I think. I think if Hero is buys into that mindset too, because then you don't get some of the resentments that you get as some of these guys kind of rise. Like, this guy is bigger than us and all the rest of that. And I will say, like, again, Jimmy attached himself to Strus, Gabe, to the try-hard guys. He's tended to do that. He didn't have a lot of respect for the guys who would be the higher draft picks typically, which again, contradictory because he wanted more talent, but then he didn't really want Gabe or Strus or Caleb or some of these other guys to be gone. But there was a partition there between him and some of the other players. And there was, I'll just say, when I was in the locker room, there would be discomfort at times. Jimmy controlled the music always. Okay. Nobody else could touch it. And I remember being in Orlando for a trip that he didn't take. And I don't travel with the team that much anymore. I'm going to travel more this year.
They don't listen to the same music, Jimmy and the team.
No. And finally, there was hip hop. Okay. Thank God. Okay. I know you're going to be surprised that I say this, but I hate country music. And like, it was, but it's because Jimmy wasn't there. It was like they were unleashed to be, themselves and enjoy the music that they like and not have to worry about this guy controlling it. And I'll just tell you, like, in some ways, Jimmy was more controlling of that stuff than LeBron ever was. And I know that LeBron would get, they always had this battle about LeBron and Dwayne, who was going to control the music in the locker room and all this sort of stuff. But it was more egalitarian at times.
Well, and they played music that those other guys liked also. So yeah, it may be their playlist, but it included stuff that everyone else liked too.
Horrible musical taste. Okay, so that's part of it, but it's the worst. Although he turned me on to a couple of decent artists, but yeah, it was. This feels a little bit more like they're all kind of in this thing together and they're growing together, and I do think that's positive. But on the other side, we'll talk about what it's network. If you have a car accident because you're listening to country music, you got to reach out to 305-800-PAIN or for any other reason. 24/7, based in Doral. They can handle anything that you've got. They'll get you to the right person, the right attorney, and you can start working on it immediately. 24/7, based in Doral, bilingual. Manny, Danny, great people down there. We're going to start doing more podcasts from there as well. And the number is the brand. So it makes it real easy for you. It's 305-800-PAIN. Again, 305-800-PAIN. Okay, so I go back to a team that I enjoyed covering, the 03-04 team. And they had two vets on that team, Brian Grant and Eddie Jones. Both were signed to big contracts, but it was a team in transition. Dwayne was a rookie. Karan was in his second season. Lamar had just come over. That team had a certain vibe. Like, they had a young vibe. They got off to a slow start. They were 0-7. There was an article that they were going to be, I forgot who wrote it, but they were going to be the worst team of all time. Mm-hmm. Stan was pulling whatever was left of his hair out. And then they ended up 42-40. They win a really interesting first round series when Dwayne has 2 game winners. And then they lose in 6 games to Jermaine O'Neal. And Dwayne dunked on Jermaine first, but 6 games to Indiana. Okay. That group had a vibe of being young, and the older guys kind of bought into it. Like Brian and Eddie, particularly Brian, okay, bought into the whole young guy thing, and they saw what Dwayne could be. And Eddie, from the very beginning, that first year was like, this guy, I'm good. This guy is like otherworldly. He's special. And I always give Eddie credit for that. He understood, okay, what this was, and he had to clear a path for him. I look at this team and I'm like, the older guys on this team, like Norm and Wiggins, are really easygoing in some ways. Now, Norm is not in some ways in terms of his approach, but you don't hear a bad thing about them as personalities anywhere. Norm came with a
No.
great reputation. Wiggins is totally introverted. And I feel like them and Bam are gonna give the young guys ownership on this team. And I think that's good.
Yeah, and I mean, to the credit of fans that want to see the Heat's young players, the ones that they've drafted, which now we can fully say that they've leaned into the draft when you look at all the first round picks on this roster, like that's good that the veterans are not um necessarily progress stoppers, let's say.
Mhm.
Like they can play with these guys and lift them up. So I mean, we're talking about a lot of things that are quite intangible. Like
Yeah.
I don't know like what they'll become in terms of wins and losses, but this is the way that you, I think, if you could have scripted how this team was going to come together as we get into the season, and obviously they haven't won a preseason game yet,
No,
and they
0
haven't
3.
faced real adversity yet, and we'll see how close they are when all those things take place. But
Mhm.
if you could have scripted it, like I think that this is how you want a team coming together that has a ton to prove, and frankly, uh, everybody in the league, it's not just that they don't respect you. I don't even think that anybody really is checking for or noticing the Heat right now.
No, they're not. They're not. I mean, most of ESPN has them 10th. ESPN behind Toronto, Greg. I would be. I mean, ESPN had Boston 5th, I believe.
Yeah.
Which I'm just trying.
It,
I'm looking at that starting lineup
I'm
other than
not
Pritchard
buying
and
it,
Jalen. No, I mean
but
Pritchard,
I'm always a
Jalen
hater.
Brown.
So what can I say?
Well, Pritchard, Jalen Brown, and Derek White, right? And then what? Like I don't. I mean, I'm looking at that lineup and it's awful. I mean, Indiana, I can kind of see it, even though they don't have Halliburton and Miles Turner, because you could see some of those young guys with greater opportunities, and they have them ahead of the Heat too. But the Boston one is amazing. The Toronto one, I don't know. There's talent on that Toronto team, but like it's all over the place. I guess the overall point is this: I I winning comes before chemistry. Okay, losing destroys chemistry potentially, but you can limit losing streaks at times if you can keep a group together. And also you can catalyze something if you can find some things on the court, but you also have this trust between the players. That's positive also. So none of this is bad. Okay. I just want to be clear on that. All right. And none of this is bad. Now, is it going to make them a 50-win team? Probably not. And I think that's where we have to pull this in a little bit. I would rather, as someone, as an observer, or you as a fan, or others as fans, you would prefer that it be like this. Okay. You know, the negative stories continuing to come out, especially because uh, Spolstra, he says he didn't need to be refreshed. Okay. Pat said he needed to be refreshed. It looked to us like he needed to be refreshed.
Yeah.
Okay. He
Let's
does seem
trust
a little,
Pat's wisdom on that one.
yeah. I mean, it felt like that as someone who's been around him for 30 years now. Like he looked like he needed to be refreshed. Okay.
And
When
that
I
was
saw him
okay.
out, yeah, when I saw him out in Vegas this year in the summer, Anthony and I were both talking about. We're like, he looks better. Like he just looks like he's got his stuff together now, in a way that he's able to kind of reset from last season and everything else that was related to it. And there was a lot of disappointment last season. It wasn't just the win loss record. It was a guy he defended publicly, constantly turning on him, which can never be fun. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that went on. And this makes it easier for Spoelstra if he has a group where there is mutual respect between the players, particularly because there are competitions. Look, Jovic and Ware are competing for a starting role. Jovic
Well,
seems to care
maybe
more
not
about it.
anymore.
No, not anymore. They were, but Jovic seems to care about it more than Ware does. Um, Drew and Davion are going to compete for minutes, most likely. Although we think Davion gets the majority of them, I think Drew might start. I know some people at the beginning of the season. I know a lot of people disagree with me about that. You mentioned Norm and Tyler are kind of competing for money. Even if it's not, they're not going to frame it that way, but the fans are going to frame it that way. And so there are, there are little things here. I mean, Jaquez and Fontecchio, I didn't see Simone on the boat. Did you? He's been hurt.
No, you're right.
Okay.
I didn't see
Okay.
him.
Okay. But Jaquez and Fontecchio are probably going to be competing for minutes. Jaquez and Larson are going to be competing for minutes. So look, you're always going to have these these intramural issues on a team where people are competing for money, competing for time, competing for the coach's attention, and all of that. But it does look like having a group that is largely in the same age range. In this particular case, they can grow together, and the organization's going to be able to figure out who fits and who doesn't, and who they want to pay and who they don't. And they've already made some of those decisions already. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, that's cool. Now we got to start winning some games. But it's cool. It's better than nothing. I mean, when the big three teams did the Harlem Shake, okay, that wasn't a bad thing that all of them could get together and do that together and leave that for posterity. But again, they also had prime, one of the two or three best players of all time, plus a franchise icon and another Hall of Famer and a bunch of other Hall of Famer or borderline Hall of Fame role players on the roster. And, there was a lot going on beyond just the Harlem Shake. So it's got to be a combination of both.
My final thought on this is Duncan Robinson on Media Day said something really interesting about and I'm going to just use the singular comment, because even if you don't provide all the other context, it's relevant. He said, I've been on teams where everyone in the room, like from the training staff to the coaches to the players, are in some way living out their dream. And yet in the middle of a season, I've been in a locker room where everybody there is miserable. That's what he said during Media Day. And he said, I've been one of those guys. So to think about what that means to like be in a position where you're living out your dream, yet you feel miserable going through a season, and what those things are. And Duncan's only ever been in Miami.
Right.
So he's referring to a prior Miami experience. All I would say is that for this team to be going in and not hating having to come to work every day, that's a good thing.
I don't want to speculate on what Duncan was talking about. But I don't want to speculate on what Duncan was talking about. I think those of us who were around the organization that time, there was one thing he was frustrated by, which we knew, which was him falling behind Max, even though they had a friendship. And Spo basically told him it had to be one or the other in one particular year that they could kind of play. And Duncan was starting to get healthy, and then he got hurt, and then he got kind of shelved, and we know that was difficult. But also Duncan was one of the guys that you could tell that 22 wore on him big time. I mean, we noticed it. You didn't even have to be in the locker room to notice that. And I just think sometimes removing, and I don't want to go too far, because when I did this at the trade deadline, and now since departed, not like dead, but like in Brooklyn, which in NBA terms is kind of the same thing.
Sorry.
Since gone, Haywood Highsmith had this quote after Jimmy was traded about how we're all coming together now and everybody feels connected and all that. And that quote got mocked a lot because, again, the team then lost a bunch of games by big margins. So there was a benefit to having Jimmy around. But, okay, Jimmy took all the air in the room. All the air. In a way that, again, I never saw even LeBron do it. Dwayne definitely did not do that. Dwayne integrated. Dwayne and Bosh, no way, okay? I've never seen someone do it like Jimmy did. The guys were walking on eggshells a lot. They were. And I just think that, because he could be funny and he could be playful and he could go to dinner with you and he could play dominoes with you, but he was going to get on you. And some guys just don't handle that as well as others. Now, for some, it works, and that style is effective. But when it starts to seem like it's just about what the guy wants and not really about your betterment or the betterment for the team, that's when players don't like coming to work. And I don't know what season Duncan is talking about, but like you said, he's only played for one team. And a lot of those years.
And he went through his slumps, so it could have been many situations, just to be clear. But
he's discussed
everybody go check out Duncan's comments at Media Day. I thought they were very insightful. Nothing was negative about the Heat organization either. But anyway, I just found that interesting because this team does not look like a group of people that are going to come to work miserable.
Right, and that's a good thing. And not like you guys all here at 5 on the Floor. By the way, the other thing you guys should look at is Duncan has been heavily involved now in mental health work himself. And although he's not a member of the Heat anymore, I advise you to check out his social media. I don't know if a lot of people know, we did not at the time, but Duncan's brother passed right after the playoffs, I believe, this past year, and he's speaking out, and so you should check it out. It's worth it's worth looking at. So it's just something to keep in mind there as you're perusing the internet. All right, appreciate everybody joining us. 305-800-PAIN. Again, reach out to them if you have a car accident. Of course, PrizePicks, use the code FIVE. Have a good day.